family have navigated our own great transition following the unexpected loss of my husband Jeff to heart disease in July 2016. Our grief and the way we navigated through that darkness has led us to places we never imagined we'd be, and today is a perfect example of that. I think the topic of post-traumatic growth can be tricky to talk about. While a lot of people find ways to push through their pain and rebuild their lives, often ending up even stronger than they were before, it's important to recognise that the extent to which this is possible varies for individuals and families, and that personal support and resources, or lack thereof, can have a big impact on what happens after loss. My family and I have been carried and lifted by those around us and inundated with emotional and practical support, which we received eagerly. I'm acutely aware that others in a similar situation feel much more isolated, and just as grief itself is not a competition, nor is what people do with their lives next. There is a type of grieving known as instrumental grief. This is where a loss is expressed through acts of service, charity work, awareness raising, and action taking in an attempt to create some kind of meaning out of the loss. Instrumental grief occurred in my case along with waves of soul-crushing sadness. In a couple of instances, those waves were felt more like a tsunami of emotion that was almost too much to bear. But I made a decision early on that we would grieve while moving. When we walked back into our house on the evening on the day of the funeral, it was dark and cold and empty in July in Canberra, and I recall kicking my shoes off, which had been biting into my feet all day, and looking at the faces of my 3 children who were looking to me for leadership in this moment. It was very much a sense of what on earth are we going to do now? The busyness of the funeral planning was over, and we were finally confronted with the question of how to navigate the rest of our lives without our husband, father and stepfather. The flowers that had poured through our door were lined up on every surface in the house. It was as though we lived in a florist shop. I looked at the kids and I made a decision. Tomorrow we'd get up and invite our closest family and friends around, and we'd dismantle all these flowers and create fresh bunches with them, then pile them into the car and deliver them to the hospital where the children had all been born. I decided quite consciously in that moment that as deeply grief-stricken as we were, Jeff's death was going to turn the light up in our lives, not down. We would look for or create one life-affirming thing every day, beginning with the floral delivery and moving through the coming hours and days and weeks and now years to reach the point where we not only saw the beauty in the world with our eyes, but we felt it again in our hearts. We reached this point by showing up anyway, even when we were saddest, whether that meant walking around a lake and breathing in the scent of the spring blossoms or watching a favourite movie on Netflix. Our aim was to tread gently and be kind to ourselves while we were still so sore from our loss. This process has taken us many thousands of kilometres around Australia and across the world. It's led us to build a brand new house from scratch in an area that Jeff had never seen and where he would never live either, too far out of town for him, where we now feel enveloped and safe and productive and eager to explore the world again from our new sanctuary. We've met remarkable people and we've forged deep friendships with people we'd never have known without our loss. Opportunities have arisen to follow creative pursuits, to write books and musicals, and to head in new directions professionally. On Thursday, I was invited to Parliament House in Canberra to speak with a shadow MP about developing a policy to overhaul the broken system of government and corporate administration for grieving people that we have to step through after loss, because it's a dog's breakfast the way that it is, and anyone who's been through that's probably nodding right now. That's not something I ever imagined myself doing, but it's something I know that Jeff would be smiling upon, as he would smile upon everything that Sebastian has opened up in his life and stepped towards in his growth. Grieving while moving and searching for one life-affirming thing every day, even when our hearts were breaking, has served us well. It's an approach that people can take no matter how dire their circumstances might be, how dark the world feels, and how difficult it is sometimes to gasp for air under such heavy emotional weight. I know now that not only will we be okay in our lives beyond loss, but we will flourish and thrive. The darkness, when it comes, will exist beside our hope and make it easier to see the stars. Because through loss, we've learned the value of every breath we take. We've sharpened our perspective on what matters most, and we've been gifted with clarity about just how precious life really is. And now we want to be all in.